Anyway, how have you been, man? Come on, you start first this time.
So I guess I can do all of the. I'm just gonna just start brainstorming here, but I can do all of the editing, recording. I get all the bookings. I do all that stuff. But
Mhm.
unless you can get it to a bigger market, which is probably where you're sitting at too, it doesn't. I think I've hit my ceiling. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense. Yeah,
As
definitely.
far as I can get it, and I don't know how to do it because the budget, right? I mean, a good publicist is a couple grand, and
Yup.
this is all DIY.
To be fair, though, I think there's well, a good publicist used to be a couple of grand. I've learned by now. It's actually told Curtis about us having this talk as well, and obviously he is one of the publicists that I work with right
Right.
now. And obviously, if you want to hire him for a whole year or more, then obviously it's going to be a bit more expensive. But what I've noticed now is that there's a lot of quality to be found if you know what you want. Because I tend to think, especially within publication and promotion, and this is not meant to say that good publicists are worth money, easy as that,
Oh
because
yeah,
it's
absolutely.
it's a tough job and it's a lot of hard work. And every euro, in my case, euro that I spent
It's well
on
worth it.
Curtis, yeah, has absolutely been worth it. But also at the same time, I've also had some really bad experiences with people telling me, "Yeah, we're gonna do all this stuff for you," and then you would just pay them a fuck ton of money, and nothing would
Right.
happen. And it's an interesting thing, and I think that you kind of have to grow as a person as well. And I think we both did that because we've been making things for a while. We've been around for a bit. At a certain point, first of all, you got to make that first decision, like, do I trust this person to do this for me? That's one.
Right.
And then second, also, it's kind of good to have a goal of sorts, to be able to say, okay, because a publicist is not like someone who can do everything for you. In my case, when I went with Curtis, he was advised to me by Avandra, a band I work with, and they were like, "You should get him because I wanted to get more music out into the American market." My problem was that I had a lot of European followers, but there was not a lot of American exposure happening in terms
Right.
of like blogs, vlogs, etc. And basically, then the guys from Avonda are like, "Oh, you should have Curtis because he's from Canada and he knows all this stuff. He has all these addresses." So I had a pretty clear mission statement, like, "This is my product, and I want it to go into that market. And can you help me with that?" And he did that very specifically. And I think that there's the merit of investment really goes towards saying, "Okay, I know what I want."
Right.
And the thing that I've seen happen quite often is there's quite a few musicians or bands are like, "Yeah, we just want to get more famous." And I'm like,
Right.
"Yeah, we all do, but you might want to make it a bit more specific here."
Right. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, what is it you're pushing? You know what I mean? And I think in that sense, connecting it to your brand, obviously with with the podcasts and with I mean, you've done the documentary thing as well,
Right.
and now with the game show. I tend to think that what the good thing is that you're doing a lot of things, but also the problem is that you're doing a lot of things. And I have
Right.
the same problem. I have the exact same problem because I like too much.
Right. And I
So,
I have to stay busy or I go nuts. And since we're in this weird fucking quarantine,
yep,
all I do is go, okay, well, if I'm not working at my real job, then I'm home trying to think of something else to do to be
exactly.
creative. And because I'm going out, you can't go to shows and I can't be anywhere. So yeah, we're all in the same boat there. But that's where the like the creative ADD, I like to call it, because I don't know what else to do.
It's like, well, it's funny because it's actually, this is something that I've taken from one of my heroes, which is Robin Williams, and obviously he's not with us anymore.
Right.
Unfortunately, was like one of my life goals was to once have a beer and talk about Evangelion with Robin Williams.
Right.
That was one of my life goals. That never happened. But he once called his comedy like comedy Tourette's, and I tend to call the way I work with my music and everything I do, I tend to call it creative Tourette's, because there's
There.
always something going like, it's
Yep.
always happening on the spot, and
Right.
then suddenly I have a mini song or I have a new album or I have a video or whatever. That's
Right.
kind of how that works.
There's also the thing, I think, and maybe unconsciously or subconsciously I'm doing it, like throw a bunch of shit against the wall and see what really works or what
Yeah,
sticks.
but to be fair, didn't you just describe what being an entrepreneur is about?
Yeah, I guess you're
Because
right.
because in a way it's like the thing that and actually I talked to Curtis about this a few times with other publicists as well, is like I've noticed that the bad publicists, if we're going to that, the type that tells you, I will make you famous, yeah, that's the guy you shouldn't be trusting.
Right.
Because that's bullshit. Like it doesn't work that way. But the guy that will tell you, hey, I've worked hard for this, I got a really big list of addresses, and I'm going to do my best.
Right.
That's the guy you should be trusting, because that's the guy that will work as hard as he can, as opposed to, promising you stuff that they won't be able to
Right.
keep. And I think regarding this, it's like when you say throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, that's kind of, I would say that is what creative people do in general, I guess.
Right.
And I mean, this is a weird example. What I was thinking about, I was talking with some prog fans, and obviously we nerd out about records. But do you know the band Disillusion from Germany?
No.
Well, they were just for your reference. They released one album which was gigantic in the prog sphere. It was called Back to the Times of Splendor, and that got like straight 9 out of 10s, 10 out of 10s.
Right.
That was like, that album came out of nowhere, and everyone was like, whoa, that was like lightning in a bottle. They had like this real, and it's still an underground cult record.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, if you say Disillusion, people will know them like, oh, Back to the Times of Splendor. That's what it is.
Right.
And then you would expect them like, okay, then then they should probably be able to reproduce that in one way or the other to keep their whole career going. And then they decided that they wanted to do something else. So the record that came after was radically different. Suddenly had industrial influences and was this whole different beast.
And it changes the fan base then.
Exactly. And the thing is that you could say that from one end, it's like, well, that's really stupid. You could have made Back to the Times of Splendor 2 and just coasted on that for a while. But actually, the guy, one of the main writers actually made a point. He was like, yeah, but there's no point in that. There's no point in doing that, because then it wouldn't be creative. It wouldn't be fulfilling for me.
Right.
And it's about taking risks in that sense. And obviously, if it was a calculated risk or not, I'm not even sure. I can imagine that maybe a part of them was even surprised that that first album did so well in the first place. Right. I can imagine you don't really anticipate that.
No, I don't think you can. So the other question is, and this is really, I think, why I hit you up in the beginning. There's got to be some way to create a revenue stream.
Right.
So I created the Patreon, whatever you call it. But I think there's an art to doing that. It's not just like some schmuck like me jumps into doing Patreon. You know what I'm saying? Again, I go back to I'm good at certain things. And then that's like a whole, because I've got it and, I've got a couple people, but it's not sustainable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, for me, it's like, it's really also about how you measure success. I think there's basically two subjects here that are interesting to dive into when you're looking at this. And one is, how do you put yourself there so that people are like, I want to support this brand, I want to support this person. That is the first step. And the second step would be, do I want to pay my mortgage out of this?
No, so I'll get that right off the table. Right.
Yeah.
I have a full-time, job that 5 more years I can retire, blah, blah, blah. So that's done. Stuff. That's paying the mortgage and doing whatever. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't leave enough with kids in college and doing all the other stuff. It doesn't leave enough to fund these side things the way I'd like to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like it would be nice if you could reach a situation that you, I mean, it's like now we're basically talking money, but that's a realistic subject, and it's a realistic subject that should be thought about. It's like at a certain point you are wondering, like, how much money am I putting into something if it doesn't bring it back? And in that sense, once again, the question, what is success? Is success saying, okay, I'm making money, or is success I'm reaching people? That is obviously something that goes,
or I'm doing what I really like to do.
Exactly.
Regardless if you like it or the next door neighbor likes it.
Exactly. It's like I'm in an interesting situation with this as well, because if I'm connecting this to my own work, it's like the studio work I do, it tends to be my income. So for example, right now I'm doing some writing work for 2 ladies who are doing a YouTube channel. They asked me to make the backing music for their covers, which is a lot of fun. That brings some money in. It's not a lot, but it does bring some money in. So in that sense, I'm then doing the thing that I like doing the most and making money off of it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like that is never enough for me to pay my rent, by doing that, because well, like if that happens, I'm stepping into that project hoping that it will take off, and if it takes off, then they'll make more money, and I will make more money. So it's always
Right.
this calculated risk reward kind of thing.
So I
But
guess Mike, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, no, go, please.
I mean, I guess going to your point there, my goal is not, although it would be wonderful, my goal is not like defining
Riches.
success as, millions of dollars or living off it or doing whatever, but
Exactly.
sustainable enough to, maybe upgrade the gear and get the room straight, things like that, and get it out to a few more people with a decent publicist.
Yeah, exactly. I think that the most important thing in this, especially in this day and age, and I also don't think, and this is a very positive development. I've been talking to quite a few entrepreneurs about this, especially those who are not necessarily just the artsy ones, just people who have their own company and are thinking like, how do I promote this? And what is standing out these days more and more is that people are, first of all, the fans are looking for people. They're not just searching for your product. They're searching for someone to latch onto. That's what I've noticed. Right. I have quite a few people who buy my records because they also think I am a nice guy and I'm saying nice things in the vlogs. And and this might sound stupid and hippie-like, but I like being a nice guy. I don't mind being framed as the nice guy. It's like that's me. That it doesn't cost energy for me to sit in front of a camera and say something nice to someone, So in that sense, that is a part of what you could say is my brand as being Tom TDW the Wit, who does these things. And I think the moment you know what your brand is, and I'm still in the process of finding that out myself, but that kind of applies to everybody. The moment you know who you are and what makes you, what makes you tick in that particular regard, then that is something you can start exploring and showing to the world more and more. And that's when, when there's a certain cohesion to that, then people will be like, oh, I like that guy. You know what?
Right.
He can have $5 a month. That's okay.
Right.
And that's kind of how that works. And I think it's a very hard journey in a way. You know what I mean? It's like because you try things, and sometimes something works, and sometimes it really, really doesn't. And I've kind of, I've been talking to people in marketing about this as well. And actually I was talking to a marketeer here for the Netherlands who works for like dairy farming and stuff, really different than what I do. And he told me, he was like that they would make like a strategy or a plan for a company. And at least in the 3 months that they're doing a campaign, they will at least have like 2 meltdowns in which they're like, we totally failed. We made all the wrong choices.
Really?
It's like, yeah, because that's a part of the process. It's like you try something, then you measure audience response, you look at it, it's like, oh, I totally went the wrong way there, So you adjust your course and you anticipate. And I think anticipation and in that sense, being flexible enough to also see where a quote unquote mistake is being made is very important. And then of course also taking the right steps to go that way. You know what I mean?
I think though it's beyond this, or beyond my scope anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think everybody's got like, I think we talk about it, everybody's got like certain sets of skills and you do whatever. I think I've hit my ceiling and I don't know where to go from here. I guess that's my biggest.
Well, yeah, I think the most important thing when you hit that point, at least that's what I would do. Like I've had a few moments.
That's why I figured I'd pick your brain.
Yeah, that's what I've always done. The moment I feel like I'm stuck, or when a situation isn't perfect, then well, first of all, take the time to analyze what you see and what you go through. Like I noticed that writing stuff down helps me a lot. Like just write down, okay, I'm doing this and this is the response.
Right.
Why? And that can take a few days. Sometimes it just happens in your subconscious the moment you start writing. Sometimes it takes months. I don't know. But this is what I mean also with that whole growing process. You got to go through that and realize, like, example, there's a few things that I've done over the years with my YouTube channel, for example. I made a few covers, some of which are very successful. But I also noticed, for example, that some of the vlogs that I made were not really watched that much.
Don't worry about that. Sorry.
Yeah. So I've had situations that I was like, well, apparently not a lot of people are looking for vlogs about this kind of stuff. So then why should I bother making them? Because obviously there's not a lot of people watching it.
Right.
And thus I made an announcement like, hey, I'm going to do one vlog a month and I'll just focus on other things like the mini songs that I'm doing right now. And suddenly I'm noticing now that I'm doing these mini songs that there's a lot more response coming out. So it's pretty clear that is apparently something I should be doing more.
Because everybody's got these short attention spans. It's crazy.
The funny thing is that I thought that as well, but I've had a few situations. For example, recently I did a mini song about my rabbits destroying the house. You know, it's just really stupid. It's 20 seconds of stupidity, and I thought it was funny, and that's it. And I had people watching that, and suddenly I would see that certain links regarding TDW, which is obviously the exact opposite, long form, weird, dark music.
Right.
I would literally see the numbers rise on the day itself because someone would see that silly song and like, hey, this guy made that. What else does he do?
Right.
Oh, you know, and I kind of start to see the merit. Like I used to have this, I think everyone, especially younger musicians, have this idea like, oh, I got to go for this specific thing or the specific image, and that's what I should do to let everything. And I'm noticing now more and more that everything's connected. So if you're willing to, you know, to explore more sides of yourself, at least I think that is a very important part in this, then people will start latching more onto you as a person in general, you know, because then they see that you're making this, but you're also this, and you also have a sense of humor. And, you know, it's like all these things combined, because why would they give you the money instead of someone else, you know?
Right. Exactly.
That is the reason. It's like the question should be like, and also it shouldn't mean that you should be altering your behavior to fit them, because obviously that's bullshit. You got to be yourself.
Right.
But I do think that there's quite a lot of people who are stuck in that idea of saying I'm promoting my band or my radio show or you know, whatever, and that's the only thing they do. You know, it's like it's like, okay, yeah, you make a thing, well, good for you, but who are you? Why should I care?
Right.
You know, and I think those are valid questions to ask yourself once in a while, not just you, but in general.
No,
you know,
I get it.
everyone
Right.
who makes content. It's and yeah, why are certain and also let's face it, also one of those, this is one of those annoying answers, luck. The annoying element of luck is also a part of it. Yeah. You just happen to have that one. In your case, for example, I love being a guest on your podcast multiple times.
Right.
And because you guys ask fun questions, it's open, you know, it's not the standardized questionnaire. And I know for a fact that there's probably quite a few musicians who thought that way.
Yeah,
over the
absolutely.
Years. So then if I would be your marketing manager now, I would start telling you, okay, get quotes from musicians you interviewed and let them tell people why it is good to be a guest with you guys, and start sharing that shit around.
Okay.
Start banking on that, because how many people have you talked to over by now? Hundreds, right? Thousands, maybe.
Yep, hundreds for sure.
You could easily send those people a message like, hey, you know, it would really mean a lot to me if you could drop me a quote about what you liked about the podcast. And then you post that, you do a little tag on Facebook or whatever platform you're using, and bam, there you go. It's once again in the subconsciousness of all these people. It's stupid marketing, but it works that way.
No, that's great though. And that stuff is short and probably could get shared quite often and passed around, right?
And even better, ask them to write something stupid, something that happened on the show, whatever. It's like, I don't know, I almost snorted my coffee when he asked me that question.
Right.
You know, those kind of quotes work the best. That's good shit. That's something you can use.
That's perfect.
Just the first thought that popped into.
No, I like it. I mean, I like the whole brainstorming thing. Like I said, I hit this ball and I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do from here. And again, it's not trying to be, you know, David Letterman or the next whatever. It's just trying to maybe improve here and there, but to improve, there's got to be cash involved.
Yeah, well, I think money, unfortunately, is the truth. It's just what it is. It's like because this is something that I was recently actually had a conversation about this with I'm with a business club, like a local business club, and these are people that one has a restaurant, the other runs a personal styling company for women. You know, it's all really different. But we were actually discussing the merit of success.
Right.
And for me, I started to notice that when I started out making music, I wasn't really sure what success was, because for me it was like I just want to write this music that's in my head and
Right.
get it out there. So my first sense of success was just having a record. Like,
That's a
wow, I
true
have this.
artist, right?
Hmm?
That's a true artist.
Yeah, but it's like I just felt like, okay, I want to get this out there. Here's a CD, and it's mine. You
Right.
can listen to it now. That's what it felt like. It's like that sense of
Right.
that sense of achievement. And then obviously as the years go by, you start realizing like, yeah, okay, I sold 5 whole copies. Maybe I want to start thinking about
Something
actually,
else. Right.
growing this. And over the years it became more of a thing. And now I'm noticing that there's a part of me that the part that wants to keep growing, which is like one voice inside in
Mhm.
my head that goes like, yeah, we should do this promotion thing, we should do this to
Right.
get it out there and sell more. But there's also the other voice that I'm cherishing intensely, is the voice that just says, you know what, I just got a message from a guy from Switzerland who ordered my vinyl record 3 times, saying that he was in a hospital recently and that my music helped him get through that.
And that's amazing.
That, to me, and actually, to be fair, like, sure, I would like more sales. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it is expensive to make a record. It is expensive to make a DVD. It's
Right.
expensive to make all this stuff. Absolutely. But that thing right there, like that other side that says you were able to touch someone's life. Okay, that's what matters.
Right.
And I think also in the case of your show, if I'm just translating it back to the podcast, but also the show we did with the music show and
Right.
everything. I think the most important thing you guys should be aiming for is really understanding that you are doing something in the way you are doing it, and that's where basically where you can, between brackets, make bank, because there's more people doing quiz shows, there's more people doing podcasts, yeah, but they're not you guys.
Right. And they're not doing it ROA. Right.
Exactly. And I think the moment you can find that angle and in a way make that presentable, then it also becomes easier for the listeners, because then the listeners will be like, oh right, yeah, that's that weird podcast where they go for weird
Yeah.
questions, but the artists really seem to be enjoying themselves. Like, that's your angle, I think.
So for anybody, we're recording this, so I'll go put it up, and maybe somebody will watch it and give us some ideas. But there's also this thing that's always driving me nuts. There's got to be some way for sponsorships, endorsements, cross promotions. There's like all, but again, I mean, me sending
Well,
emails or doing whatever is not getting it. I think there's talented people that do that or have
well,
that
I
skill
think,
set.
but honestly, the question, but then, okay, translate it back again. The moment you can say, hey, we had like I don't know, we had like 5 of the greatest guitarists on earth in metal, we had those on our podcast, right to the guitar builders.
Right.
Just
Oh,
go to Ibanez, go to Fender, and tell them like, hey, we talked to this, and this guy, and we're thinking of doing a special show about guitar stuff. Would you guys be interested in endorsing that?
interesting.
Then it gets in. Then it gets interesting, because obviously there's a big chance they'll say no, because I believe it was actually Chris, or Christine, as I should
Right.
uh, call her now. This is a running joke that's never
Oh
going to
yeah, I
get
told
old.
him about it too.
Uh,
He's laughing.
That's perfect. But it's like he actually made that comment saying that you're in the rejection business. That's just what it is. Every time you do something, there will be rejection. You
Right.
will not get your email answered. You will get, yeah, it's a nice idea, but no. It's like that will happen. But I think the moment you keep shooting, and especially in your case, you guys have, and this is, I'm just talking, in this case I'm just talking to the camera, I'm not just talking to Bruce, but to each and every one of you guys. It's
Sure.
like the moment you've built something that is yours and that has an identity, then there's probably a treasure trove of possibilities that you can delve into like this. But you basically got to put on a different hat, and that's not the hat of the creator, but in this case it's really just the hat of the marketeer, between brackets, and
And I think
saying,
that's where I struggle the most, for sure.
me too. All creative people do this.
I guess.
Like, I mean, I'm literally telling you things like, I mean, right now it sounds like I know a lot about this, but I've learned this from others. I've made all these
Right.
mistakes as well. And that's also a thing. Today I was talking to Metalhead Money on Twitter. Hi guys, just doing a shout out here, but They did an interview with me and they asked me like what was one of the most important things I did, and I always said that I kept reading, kept learning, kept going for
Right.
more nuggets of info. And of course, not everything you read or know will be equally useful, but I do think that there's a real merit in trying to be a sponge, an
Oh
information
yeah.
sponge, and just going for everything.
Well, it's funny you say that, and this is sort of not at all podcast or music related, but I work for university police,
Oh wow, really?
and part of being there is you get to go to school for free at a university. So,
Dude, that is amazing. I wish I could do that.
so I've been I'm working on my second master's in this one is on religion and world religion and philosophy,
Dude,
just for the hell of it. I had
I am jealous. I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. That is so cool.
I'm going to be totally honest with you. 3 years ago, I sat down and I said, I want to pick something completely outside of my wheelhouse that I know nothing about, and it just dive in head first. So I jumped into philosophy and world religion, and I love it.
I
And
get that.
I go for free. So yeah, I 100% what you were saying is I'm just learning just for the hell of it.
And also,
I may never use that stuff, but it's awesome.
And that is not true. I think okay, sorry, I have to put a pause on that right now. I think that what you're learning there, because obviously, and I mean, you're talking to a guy who loves philosophy, so I'm biased as all heck, but
Right.
the thing is, I believe that even if you're going for something extremely abstract, if you really would be like, okay, I'm a pie maker and now I'm going to study math, then there's always, once again, everything is connected. It's one of those things that I've been shouting to a lot of people lately when they're like, oh, I'm a musician, but I cannot think visually. And I'm like, that is not true. There's probably a part of your brain that is already able to do that, because otherwise you would not be able to make music
Right.
like that. But it's just something you got to train. You got to put time and effort into. If you're willing to train yourself into seeing things as opposed to just hearing things, then there's a pretty big chance that you're actually a lot more visual than you thought you were.
Right.
And the same goes for that person working in a bakery who was maybe secretly doing math all this time because they were measuring everything to make the perfect bread.
Right.
I tend to think that even with what you're just describing, it's like obviously world religion and philosophy is an incredibly broad subject and it's
Right.
mind-blowing in itself. But there's so much knowledge there that basically could enrich your everyday life. Also
Sure.
looking at this. I definitely think that everything you do, I'm not sure who said this, I believe it was an American quote, but there's no knowledge that isn't power. And I think there's real merit in that. That is one that I try to live by as much as I can. Like, okay, sure, teach me.
Yeah. Excellent. What else you got?
What else you got?
I think we covered everything that I was really. And I want to say, since we're going to put this out there, if there's anybody that's got suggestions, I know
Yes.
I'm more than happy to hear them, and I'm assuming you are as well, so you can reach out to either one of us.
It's honestly, it's like I'm just basically shooting from the hip based on the questions that you're giving me right now, and the thing is that as I think if we want to go for something of a conclusion, because obviously you got to when you end it in a way, it's like I think one of the most important parts in this is like first of all, embracing change is very important. So for example, you throw stuff at the wall, as you said in the beginning, and then obviously you got to check like, okay, what is happening? Why is this happening?
Right.
And if it is great, then obviously keep going. If it is not great, what can I change to maybe make it better? And then the second step is obviously learning from that experience and trying to find out where the growing possibilities are.
Right.
And then obviously there's that one big spot in the left field, which is random chance. And unfortunately, that is just also reality. You cannot really, yeah. It's like I've talked to some musicians, some of my idols as well. And I asked them like, did you guys know that you were making something great? And every person that I asked this about all said no. Like you just make the thing that you want to make, that you're passionate and excited about. Yeah. And you don't know if that is going to happen or not. It could literally backfire. It could be nothing, or it could be the biggest thing ever.
I mean, I guess that's the whole thing, right? You just got to hope somebody connects with it and says, I get it.
Exactly.
Because
And
not
then,
everybody does. If I look at my stuff, like not everybody gets Melanie Madness.
no, but that's
They just
okay.
don't, and that's fine. They don't have to. But the people that do is your market.
Exactly. And I think that expanding that market is, well, one of the hardest things to do, but it's also just a matter of keeping going.
Yeah.
It's like I'm also a pretty firm believer, and this is something that my father gave me a bit of wisdom when I was younger, which always sticks in the back of my head. And he was like, because I was highly sensitive, I still am, and I was a very scared kid. I was scared of a lot of things,
Mhm.
and there's still a certain amount of fear with me with everything I do. But he always told me, like, you gotta, it's better to regret the things you did than to regret the things you did not
Yeah.
do
Right.
because you were scared. And
Right.
obviously this goes within the limits of what is ethically possible,
Oh,
etc.
sure, sure.
But it's just that, there have been many moments in my life that I felt like I am not going to do this because I'm scared shitless. Like, I don't want to go, like, as much as I love being on stage, for instance, there's always that 10 minutes in
Right.
advance that I am a wreck, a complete emotional wreck. Like, why am I here? I'm not able to do this. I'm the worst. I cannot hold a note.
Right.
I am a fraud. And
Everybody's
then
their own worst critic, though, right?
exactly. And then the moment you go up on stage, that kind of translates into that adrenaline that makes you go, wow, and you
Yeah,
you go up
absolutely.
and do the show. But there's like there's an the thing is regarding this is that I've learned by now that if you're willing to keep doing the thing you're doing, you will always grow in one way or the other. And it's like, if I look back at my very first live shows, I'm like, that wasn't good.
Right.
But now people are like, oh, you got a great live show, and I'm like, oh, I'm so happy you did not see the train wrecks that I started out with.
Right.
But it kind of proves that if you do something, and especially, and once again, you do something, you analyze it, you're willing to make changes if need be,
Right.
then you can evolve that thing into something better. And then I think the moment you know what you are, how you do it, and what you are here to give, if
Right.
you know what you're here for, then there's always an audience for that. And if that audience is big or small or whatever, well, yeah.
It's still there. Right. But the thing I think, to wrap it up, what you said earlier, like, is where you determine success, or how do you determine success? I think for
Mhm.
me, forget about the money, because obviously it's not that, but I have met some amazing people from everywhere in the world. I've
Mhm.
literally done this show on boats in the Caribbean on the 70,000 tons of metal cruise 5 different times. I've
Dude, that's
been like
awesome.
all these freaking places that, so I mean, that to me is value,
Dude, that is
right?
that is insane. That
And
is
all these people,
insanely
like, I never
cool.
would have met you, or any of these people that
Also, if you go back to that cruise again, and if you have some space in your luggage,
Yep.
please,
Yep. 5 different
I
times
would
I've been
love
able to
to.
get on, just doing podcasts or video stuff. So it's been that in itself. Me and my wife go, and it's a free vacation to wherever. And
That is so
I
cool,
work during the day. I just do interviews, but that's not really work. That's what I love to do.
dude. That's fun. Yeah,
Put your microphone in
that
front of some of the biggest names in the business, and I'm able to do it. So that's great.
like
So that's
for
how
me.
I measure it.
Yeah.
It's not really I don't want anybody watching this thinking I'm trying to be a millionaire, because that was never.
But I think it's funny because it's like what you're doing here. In that sense, if I'm just objectively looking at, because you started out, and for those of you who are watching this, we started out originally. You asked me like, hey, can we just do a brainstorm about this? And I think we both kind of concluded like, hey, if we record this, there might be something in here that could be useful for others as well,
Right.
right?
Or somebody who can
And
watch this and give us tips.
exactly. And what I think is really funny is that, okay, yeah, you're on one hand making the point like, hey, there's a certain ceiling that I'm at, which I would
Right.
like to go by. But at the same time, I hear you have passed that ceiling many times as well, because
Oh yeah. And
at
so
the
I
end,
guess in different forms, right? I don't know if that's
exactly.
the word, but yeah. So yes, I mean,
So
I've gotten to sit in rooms with some of my musical idols, and people that as little me would be like drooling over, and I'm in the Caribbean with a microphone talking to him. But on the same token, or on the other side of that coin, there is that ceiling, because I can't get by it.
well, and I think the most important thing regarding this then is, and this might be something you can explore for yourself. It's like, what is it that makes you you and makes your brand you in this case, and what can you do to reach that audience better? And those are like the two questions that I often discuss with the bands from my label as well. Actually, I mean, I'm not naming any names right now, but we actually signed a new band like yesterday, and I'm really excited about it
Nice.
because yeah, it's an American dude, and well, it's a bunch of dudes, but he's like the main writer,
Right.
and his music is batshit insane. I love it. It's like the most avant-garde weird stuff ever, and I
Right.
think the quality is through the roof. But he also told me, he's like, that his problem is that the especially with that kind of avant-garde stuff, if you don't have that starter audience somewhere, then it's just really hard to get to, to find that right audience. And obviously, because I've already signed multiple bands within the prog genre and in the avant-garde genre,
Right.
I now have this base of listeners and press that are interested in this kind of weird
Stuff you
stuff.
put out. Right.
So but basically the talks that I'm having with him right now is like, I want you to write new music that is you, and then I want you to think of an image, or like a visual approach that goes with that.
Right.
And that is what I, or in this case we, the people at the label, etc., will be marketing to, and then we can actually make a plan around that.
Right.
And the thing is that he just admitted, he's like, I never really had a plan, I just kind of did it. And I'm like, I get it, because that's literally how I've been doing it for
Yeah.
years.
I think that's the way most people get in. You just
Exactly. But at a certain point, yeah, it's like, but like with my last record, with The Days the Clock Stopped, I actually consciously sat down, like, okay, this is going to be the artwork, this is going to be the style, the photos should have this atmosphere. That's, for example, why this is a really logical thing, but I never thought of that before. I was like, I should do the band photos, or my own photos, because the solo project,
right.
on the same set as the music video,
Yeah.
because then it all connects.
Right.
It's stuff like that most people are like, oh yeah, we need a photo shoot, I'll just think of this. And
Right.
but it's about making those connections. And I think in that sense, if that is the criticism, between brackets, that I can give towards all the things that you're doing, is that maybe there is more connection to be had between the things you do, and maybe that's something that can be improved on,
Right.
and which can then be used to
Sure.
put out there.
Right on.
So, and that's something that I'm noticing, because by now, if I make a silly song, it's TDW. If I make a very serious song, it's TDW.
Right.
If I sign a new band with the label, then it's Layered Reality, but it's connected to me, so
Right.
those people will see it as well. And yada 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 yada.
And it's
yada.
sort of a built-in
Everything's-
audience.
Yeah, but everything's connected.
Yeah.
That's really one of the most important things.
Okay. Well, cool. I appreciate your time, man.
No problem.
We're all in the same boat, I guess, just trying to figure this all out as we go. So
Exactly. And also for the viewers at home, I mean, if you think everything I've said is completely wrong, then I'm always open for constructive feedback. However, flames will be used to burn my sausages. So
awesome, man. I'll probably put this up in the middle of the week here. I'm not going to edit it. I'm just going to throw it up because we just talked off the cuff, right? Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine with me. No problem.
Awesome. Be well, my friend.
Right.
Stay safe.
You too.
Thanks for the advice.
No problem.
All right, later.
Talk later.
Bye.
Bye.